Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Pennington County Planning Commission meeting of March 11, 2024. Recommendations of the Planning Commission on certain items from this agenda will be considered by the Board of Commissioners at their regular meeting on March 19, 2024 at 10:30 a.m. I usually like everyone to know that the 10:30 is an approximate time they use for these items, but that is the planning items. In other words, it could go longer depending on discussion on other planning items that go to the board. The Planning Commission utilizes speaker request forms, which are available in the commission chambers. If you are an applicant or an agent, you do not need a speaker request form. Roll call. Jim let us know he wasn't going to be here. He's the only member that's missing. Commissioner LaCroix is our liaison today. Approval of the February 26, 2024 meeting minutes. Have you had a chance to review those in your packets? And if you have, the chair would address the motion to approve.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve February 26, 2024 minutes of the Planning Commission. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Approval of the agenda. Have you had a chance to review your agenda as submitted to you for this meeting? If so, the chair would address a motion to approve.
So move. Second.
Moved and second to approve the agenda for the Planning Commission meeting March 11th, 2024. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Good morning, Brittany.
Good morning, Commissioners. Brittany Molitor, Planning Director. The following items have been placed on the consent agenda for action to be taken on all items in accordance with staff's recommendation by a single vote. Any item may be removed from the consent agenda by any planning commissioner, staff member, or audience member for separate consideration. The findings of this planning commission on certain items from this agenda are recommendations to the Pennington County Board of Commissioners, who will make the final decision. Item number 4 is conditional use permit review, CUR 2219, for Stephen and Janae Bell to review an accessory dwelling unit to be located in a garage in an agriculture district. And staff recommends approval of conditional use permit review CUR 2219 with conditions. Item 5 is conditional use permit review CUR 2235 for Jeff and Leah Lick to review living in a mobile home while building a single-family residence in an agriculture district. And staff recommends approval of conditional use permit review CUR 2235 with conditions. Item number 6 is conditional use permit review CUR 23-06 for Black Hills Church of Christ to review an illuminated on-premise sign within 1,500 feet of a residential zoning district or dwelling unit in a highway service district. And staff recommends approval of conditional use permit review CUR 23-06 with conditions. Item number 7 is conditional use permit review CUR 23-38 Peaceful Valley Hideaway, William and Valerie Landis, to review a vacation home rental in a rural residential district. And staff recommends approval of conditional use permit review CUR 23-38 with conditions. Item number 8 is minor plan unit development amendment review PUR 14-05 for Joni Peterson to review an existing Trailwood plan unit development to allow a home occupation, a salon business in the basement of the residence. And staff recommends to end minor plan unit development amendment review PUR 14-05 as the use is no longer needed. And finally, item 9 is mining permit review MP 23-01 for Western Construction to review an aggregate mining operation in the agriculture district. And staff recommends approval of mining permit review MP 23-01 with conditions.
Thank you, Brittany. Does the staff desire to have any of those pulled today?
No, not at this time.
How about the commission? Would you desire to have any of those pulled today?
6.
Number 6. The audience, and what we're doing, we vote on these on one vote. If you are here to discuss or give testimony on any one of these, 9. We are now pulling number 6, but you have the right to pull one too. Anybody from the audience want one of those pulled? Thank you. Chair to address a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I move we approve consent agenda items 4, 5, 7, 8, 9.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda for March 11, 2024, items 4, 5, 7, 8, and 9. Discussion from the audience, from the commission. Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. On to item number 6. Thank you.
Couple questions. Number one, in the analysis, you talk about a wastewater operating system. What does that have to do with the sign? It doesn't matter to me, but I gotta look at, wow, what's that doing?
What number is that?
Under analysis.
So they are on septic system. So they're commercial. So they have to have it pumped every 3 years now because the ordinance
Well,
has
my only
changed.
question was,
Yes.
we're doing the sign and it had
Yeah,
something to do with that.
Because it's a conditional use permit, so it
Okay.
has to be done.
All right. The other
Correct.
thing is you've got a red strike through 1 year, so we're not gonna have to look at those anymore.
Correct.
Okay, and then the other one, this is strictly a view from the driver going up and down the hill. At night, this sign is really bright. I mean, it's bright. If you have a fog up there, which one night it was, it's just like the whole place is lit up. I would think they would turn it down a little bit at night, but that's all I've got.
Okay.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we do conditional use permit CUR 23-06.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve per staff's recommendations CU 23-06 with 6 conditions. Discussion from the audience, from the commission. Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carried. On to item number 10, isn't it? Am I right today?
Yes, yes.
Okay,
Item number
good.
10, Kelsey Roush, planner. Item number 10 is a road naming application off of Lower Spring Creek Road. The applicant is Brian Barber. He is requesting to name one of his new easement roads, John Wayne Trail. Sorry, it was road, now it's trail. And so the road is built. It does meet our width standards, but I do believe it does need some gravel on it. It's pretty much dirt. The applicant is here today, so if you have questions for him, try and see if this will stay up here. So, and then we also noted that the applicant must file the easement with Register of Deeds. He has somebody in line to do the easement, but they just haven't he hasn't been out there yet to actually do that and do the paperwork for it. And then also, as another condition, he must submit road construction and section line right-of-way applications because John Wayne Trail crosses the section line between section 32 and section 5. And I did mention that to him last week, that would probably be required.
Questions for Kelsey? Now, the conditions, I assume, it's not anything you have to follow up on. You set them up so that they come back to you so that, because we usually don't hold up the road names for conditions. So
No.
you're gonna check them off and it's clear.
Yep,
Thank
I
you.
will work with him.
Any other questions for Kelsey?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
move that we approve road name John Wayne Trail.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve per staff's recommendation with 3 conditions. John Wayne Trail. Discussion from the audience, from the commission. Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. On to item number 11.
Okay, item number 11 is another road naming for Brian Barber. There's a secondary road that comes off of John Wayne Trail that he is proposing to name Clint Eastwood Trail. According to him, it is not in the section line right of way. He did build it south of the section line on purpose. But it also crosses the section line to go north, to a couple of those other properties up there. So again, he would have to do another road construction within a section line to cross that portion of the section line right of way. Again, the road itself is wide enough, but I do believe it does need some gravel to meet our ordinance 14 standards. There is already one house off of this road, that Rivard, it's a 40-acre piece. There is a house there now. They are waiting for an address. They have a temporary address off Lower Spring Creek Road. So we are trying to get these two road names through as fast as we can to get those people an address. So, and then again, he'll have to file the easement with the Register of Deeds.
Questions for Kelsey?
Yes. So was this also intended to be a road to begin with and then changed to trail? The paperwork
Yes.
shows road in
Oh, does it?
numerous places.
Yes, it's supposed to be trail. I thought I fixed most of those. Yes, it should be trail.
Okay, just confirming.
My only question would be, do you approve the address then? If we approve this today, you can approve the address so emergency services has that?
So they do have a temporary address.
I see.
Until the road signs get put up, I can't give an address until the road signs get put up. So it'll
But
still be a
that
little
is something
little
you
time.
coordinate through your office
Yes.
with emergency services? Okay,
Yes.
thank you. Any other questions for Kelsey? Anyone here to speak on this today in the audience? Chair would address a motion.
I move we approve road name petition Clint Eastwood Trail.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve staff's recommendation to this road name to Clint Eastwood Trail with 3 conditions. Discussion from the audience, from the commission. Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. On to item number 12.
Morning, Commissioners. Jason Thennison, Assistant Planning Director. Agenda item number 12 is rezone CORZ 24-0004 to rezone from Agriculture District to a Ranchette District. The applicants are Lynn and Jody Jensen. Their agent is Advanced Design, and Chanel's in the audience if you have questions for her. Location of the property is at the intersection of Rochford Road and Silver Creek Road. Currently, the property is 83.34 acres, zoned Agriculture District. It is vacant of any structures or utilities. Access is off Silver Creek Road and Rochford Road, and there is 100-year special flood hazard area on the property. Staff does take into account roads and streets when they make recommendations for rezones. South Rochford Road is a 66-foot wide right-of-way. It is 33-foot wide gravel. Silver Creek Road is a U.S. Forest Service road. It is 66-foot wide right-of-way, currently 15 feet of gravel across. There is no utilities or infrastructure on the properties as they sit today, but there will be private water and sewer available. Current zoning is on the screen at the top. You can see rural residential in yellow, agriculture in light green, and open space in dark green. We also look at future land use, which is on the bottom. You can see suburban residential in brown, rural residential in yellow, ranchette in tan, and again, open space in dark green. Request was routed around for interdepartmental review. County Highway stated that approach permits for proposed Lot 1 must be filed with the Highway Department. Proposed lots 2 and 3 would need permitted by the U.S. Forest Service. No other objections or concerns were received. Staff's analysis of the request is that the applicants have applied for layout plan COLPL 24-0003 in order to subdivide and create proposed lots 1, 2, and 3, leaving a remaining balance. You can see on the screen, lot 1 is in green, lot 2 is in blue, and lot 3 is in red. Lot 1 will be 5.12 acres, lot 2 will be 7.17, and lot 3 will be 6.73 acres, all meeting the minimum 5-acre lot size for ranchette. Future land use designation for this property is ranchette, so it is in keeping with the View to 2040 comprehensive plan. With that, staff recommends approval of rezone CORZ 24-0004.
Questions for Jason? I just got a comment. Thank you, Jason, for that in the analysis, because at first I had a problem figuring out what properties were on there, and that's not your fault, but that leaving the 64.32 and then listing your lot sizes, that really assisted me in reviewing this. I just wanted.
Yep, that remaining balance will stay agriculture district too.
Yes, that is a good point. The remaining does stay in the agriculture district if the commission has interest in that. Anyone here to speak on this? No questions for Jason. Chair to address a motion.
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve per staff's recommendation, CORZ 24-0004. You guys make me work harder. But anyway, discussion from the audience, from the commission. Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. On to item number 13.
Good morning, Commissioners. Again, Brittany Molitor, Planning Director. Item number 13 is Planning and Development Overlay, COPU 24-0001. It's to allow a Plan Unit Development Overlay for a specialty resort. They are requesting a specialty resort to include cabin rentals, glamping sites, an observation deck, a caretaker's residence, a bathhouse, playground, cooking area, and a reunion wedding recreation venue. The lot size is approximately 10.6 acres. It is located near the intersection of Highway 16 and Sammy's Trail. Currently, the zoning is both highway service and agriculture district, and it is vacant of any structures or utilities. When staff looks at plan unit development overlays, they look at criteria under section 216, and they also look at criteria under conditional use permits 510. Those are on the screen. This was routed around through interdepartmental review. There were some items of concern, and those are addressed as conditions. However, the highway department had concerns about the drainage on the north line of the property, that any road built within the or along the section line must be built to ordinance 14 standards. A turnaround must also be built to ordinance 14 standards, and that they will need to name that section line right of way to take access off it. With that, staff finds no significant issues with the applicant's request as the uses are in harmony with either uses by right or conditional uses in a highway service or an agriculture district. Staff is also recommending that they rezone it to one zoning district. If you see on the screen, there's two zoning districts on this. The section line right of way one's north and south off of Sammy's Trail. And the requirements for improvement of a section line are very different between the two different districts. So it is recommended that they rezone it to one district. So I can entertain any questions you may have.
Questions for Brittany?
I've got one, and I'm not familiar with it. Under interdepartment review, Brittany, primary uses, blah, 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 future land use for Rapid City. When this is done, does Rapid City still call this a forest conservation?
That's what it would be in their future land use plan, but at this time, they don't have, there's no indication that they plan on annexing it at this time.
Well, I was just curious. I'd never run into that before, how that was listed, so Okay, it doesn't affect us at all then?
No, and the Forest Conservation and Agriculture District, the specialty resort is a use. This board sees specialty resorts and agriculture on a regular basis. It's also an appropriate overlay in a highway service. So either district fits, it's just, we're just requesting that they rezone it to one or the other
Okay.
entirely.
That's all I've got, sir.
Any other questions for Brittany? I've got a couple and comments too. I'll start out with the comment. Some time back, we approved storage rentals just on top of that
Correct,
hill
north.
too. And the owner of the house that's in that highway service, which is a longtime resident, and the previous one to them was even longer, it involved reptile gardens. They did have concerns about their view. I would hope your applicant takes the time to at least drive over and talk to them. I don't know whether it's in their view or not. I haven't been out there to look. This is quite a change from years of sitting there with that. You remember the old pink house that was there for years. This is a big change for those folks. And they understood very much so that they were in highway service when we spoke about the storage. So I don't think that's a question, in other words, but the view is. So I just wanted to bring that up and see if your applicant, you would note to your applicant, be nice to touch base with those folks.
The applicant is here.
Okay.
So,
Well,
and to that, the applicant is actually going to be living on this property.
Yes, that
And
makes a big
managing
difference.
both the storage units and the specialty resort. So they will be close to both properties. So they will take access off that easement that's going through here. So there will be,
Yeah,
the manager's residence will be here. The specialty resort area will be down here.
yes. All right, and then I'd have to note, I'm still, I'm not a great supporter of, what would I call it, alternative ways of housing people, and I see this has got some glamping sites in it, and I hate to see those. One of these days, we're gonna have a mistake with our fire danger and the hail and things we have around here. Putting people into alternative ways of housing is gonna cause us a problem. He's probably gonna be after I'm gone, because that's the way those things run, but it's a tough thing for me to support alternative ways of housing people for sleeping. Anyway, and then the last thing is their little howdy-do here on what they're doing. Notes, additionally, we have planned a retention pond created to release water at the determined desired rate. This drainage naturally runs into Spring Creek. That one doesn't fit at all to me, but.
Oh, it's actually to the south. Spring Creek runs very much to the south. So the topography of this is, it's up on top of the hill. So everything eventually goes down to Spring Creek, which is the lowest portion.
Anyway, all right. I thought maybe there was an extra tributary or something. Now, do they have to get for a retention pond? Is there additional approvals for those sort of things?
There is through our section 507 in
All
our
right.
construction permit ordinance. They did have some pretty extensive stormwater engineering for that north portion too, for their storage units. So,
I'm done. Thank you. Any other questions for Brittany? And the applicants here on this? Would you like to come forward? I do have what Brittany was saying is it'd be more appropriate to ask you to go ahead. She and I have subtle little things between us. Please introduce yourself just for the record.
Name's Michael Valone.
Michael, and I'll finish and then get out of the way in case the other commissioners have questions. What we're talking about is that new storage that was there.
Yep.
The actual person that lives in that house, now I remember their name, but that's irrelevant. They bought it from the people from Reptile Gardens. And it did concern them about the view that they have. And I don't know what the view is over to your property, but it would be rather neighborly to stop by and give them a chance. They're nice folks.
Oh,
They
sir.
were here at that meeting.
Yep. So we went down last week and introduced them and told them exactly what our plan was. We walked through their house, kind of got an idea of their views. We're not interrupting any of the views towards the hills. The only real view that they would see from one of their upper bedrooms looking to the east would be our rec venue building,
Okay.
which would be on top there.
And I'm sure it was a real plus that you are going to be on site,
Yes.
because I do remember their testimony, and that was their biggest
Oh, yeah.
concern. That's been sitting out there for years all alone, and now we're building around it.
We understand, and we're trying to make it as minimal as possible. And our main goal was to live out there, but it's zoned highway services, so we kind of had to finagle our way to be able to build our house out there. And we came up with this idea to help monetize it and help
I
us.
appreciate you going to see him. Any other questions for Mike while he's up here? Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Appreciate it. Anyone else here to speak on this matter? Chair will address a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move approval of COPU 24-0001.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve per staff's recommendations. COPU 24-0001 with 39 conditions, I believe. I want to get that number right. Yep. Discussion from the audience. From the commission. Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. On to 14.
Megan Talmadge, Planner. Agenda item number 14 is minor plan MPL 24-0001, and it is to create lots A and B of Lot 4 of Strata Estate subdivision. The applicant is Adam and Sharon Weaver, and their agent is Sarah Cheddar. This is located at 23679 Strata Rim Drive. Lot A would be 5 acres and Lot B would be 0.75 acres. The current zoning is a split zoning of rural residential district and low-density residential district. That is a correction on the current zoning. Their access is from Strata Rim Drive, and there is no flood hazard on the property. This is a property that is being platted through both the city of Rapid City and Pennington County. We have seen this before as a rezone and comprehensive plan amendment that was approved by the Board of Commissioners on September 5th to low-density residential. Since then, the applicant has improved the gravel road to the 20 feet wide. And as for utilities, the 5-acre lot has existing private utilities, and the 0.74 acre lot will utilize a private water system and have its own on-site wastewater treatment system. Staff recommends approval of minor plat MPL 24-0001 with 4 conditions.
Thank you, Megan. Questions for Megan?
Clarification. Under analysis number 5, the 5-acre existing private utilities and all that, and then at 0.74 acres will utilize an existing private water system and on-site wastewater. What is that a septic tank on a 0.74 acre?
Yes, since they don't have a well, they'll have a private water system. They can have a septic system on 0.5 acres.
What are they going to do with 0.74 acres?
It'll be a small mother-in-law type suite. Because if you remember back in August, September, when this originally came through as the rezone and comp plan, what they wanted didn't quite fit the criteria of our accessory dwelling unit or guest house.
Yeah.
So they decided to subdivide the property.
Okay. Yep. Nope. Got it. Thank you.
Other questions for Megan? Is your applicant here?
I don't believe so.
Just thought I would ask.
Yeah.
Chair to address a motion.
I would just say, Mr. Chair, I'm glad that we found a resolution to this because we did talk about this.
Right.
I think in multiple meetings, and we're trying to find a right solution for them. So I'm glad we came to that. I would move that we approve MPL 24-0001.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve MPL 24-0001 with 4 conditions. And I agree with Kevin. It's good when these things are resolved that are so close to sitting on the edge and just working out. It's good. Any other discussion from the audience? From the commission? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. On to item number 15.
Agenda item number 15 is conditional use permit COCU 24-0005, and it is to allow a multifamily dwelling on the subject property. The applicant is Dan and Joan Pomeranke, and their agent is Wade Reynolds. This is located west of the corner of Assurance Lane and Lower Spring Creek Road. The lot size is 10 acres, current zoning is agriculture, and the existing land use is agriculture. The access is currently through a private access easement that is via Lower Spring Creek Road. We did see that earlier today in that road naming application, John Wayne Trail. There's no flood hazard on the property. This item was last heard at the February 26th, 2024 Planning Commission, and the commission requested that more conditions be included to cover some of the items in the analysis. Since then, Brian Barber has applied for the road name, but staff included condition number 7 as the road sign still must be placed and the road improved. And staff has also included condition number 8 to ensure the recreation and leisurely area required by section 303 of the zoning ordinance. Staff recommends approval of this item with 9 conditions.
Thank you, Megan. Questions for Megan? I'm just going to make a comment, just so the audience knows or the people that are listening in, Mr. Koppel's comments were still included in the packet. And we also received, and I would hope each member of the commission received, declaration of restrictions and covenants to run with the land. I don't suppose their chair, they have a homeowners committee or somebody that speaks for this.
Brian Barber is here. I believe he is. If he would like to speak.
I just had one question, Brian. You'll have to introduce yourself just for the record, and we'll go from there, and we'll see if we can get you off the podium quickly.
Brian Barber.
Thank you, Brian. This revision, then, this is what's going to be filed?
It is filed.
It is filed.
They have filed it. The other 9 haven't got theirs filed yet, but we were tight on time. All of them are done, and they're at the title office. And because we don't want to make 9 trips to file, but theirs has been filed with these corrections that are highlighted.
Okay.
The 2, you can read the highlighted section.
Yes.
Okay.
Does everyone understand what Brian's, there's highlighted sections on it. Go ahead, Mike.
Have these been approved by the other folks, this revision one?
Each one is individually filed with each property. So it wasn't filed as a blanket on all 400 acres. Each one was filed upon the sale and the agreement with each property owner.
So this revision one that we have was all signed by each.
This one was not, because this is an example. I just crossed out the legal description. Pomeranski's, I didn't go down to the Register of Deeds office and pull the one from Pomeranski, but it has been filed correctly. They have signed it and they have agreed to it. The rest of the people have all been notified of this by email, that they can come by the title office, sign it, and then it will be filed.
But if they don't want to sign it?
If they don't want to sign it, then I can't force them to, but I can't see any reason. Most of them all of them moved out there to be away from the city and not have to live in town. And these are very, very, very minor changes for them.
But it's a big change for us when we're looking at this multifamily setup. Mr. Coppels, he quotes the single family on the covenants on that one. This is different. That's why I wondered what.
Mike, can I throw in a comment here, though? And I would think we're stepping over the line. We're not dangerously close. The Board of Commissioners and the Planning Commission does not do anything in regards to actions that enforce covenants.
Right.
However, we can consider them in our thinking and review of a matter. And that's the easiest way to put it. I would think what you're asking begins to step over that line where if we, whether or not his other property owners sign this becomes enforcement. We can consider what's here as part of agenda item number 15, but we cannot, I think your question's getting close to enforcement because.
It is, but my only concern here is Mr. Coppels, he talks about the covenants talking about single family, and I realize we can't enforce those. The intent evidently when people signed this is to have single family residence, and now we've got a little different thing. That was my only thought.
It's kind of a flip-flop. We're not enforcing the single-family aspect of the covenant, but we're not going to enforce the allowing of a multi either. We're reviewing it as something, I guess I would call it in progress, might be the best way to, it's in progress and it's certainly to be considered. Does that answer what we're talking about here pretty close?
I believe so.
Okay.
We're pedaling as fast as we can.
And you have every right to do these things, so do your members. I'm just saying that's why we actually stay out of it. Commissioner LaCroix can tell you that. That's why we stay out of these things, because we become a judgmental body once we start doing that, and that's not our intent.
The covenants are different from the people who are building right on the pavement of Lower Spring Creek Road and the ones that are back on John Wayne Trail and Clint Eastwood, because the covenants were a lot more lax as you got back, and they were stricter out on the pavement from where Jeff Koppel was.
Oh,
Do you also have some properties that are still vacant, which you can control, I assume?
I do.
Okay. So that's what I'm getting at. We want to stay clear of enforcement, Mike. Sorry.
And all the future covenants will have this correction in them, and then the past ones are being asked to go sign them for their own.
As an understanding.
For their own security,
Sure.
that someone doesn't move in and
Okay.
create.
Commissioner LaCroix?
Well, first of all, thanks for the explanation, Mr. Chairman, because you're absolutely right. Covenants are only as strong as the residents who live there, and trying to get the burden put on the planning commission or the commission themselves, Pennington County Commissioners themselves. We don't take that stand. We do, like, as he said, review them and so forth. In other areas of this country, homeowners associations enforce them. They got a fund and they have people to do that, but that's the whole idea. I just had a discussion with a property owner a month ago. They bought the property and seen the covenants and were asking questions on it, and there was no real organization for the covenants, you know what I'm saying? So they were concerned about them, and this is up where I live, and I said, we have nobody that answers to them. It's good that you've taken interest and are looking out for everybody up there, but until you can organize with all your residents and find a way to enforce them without using the planning commission, it's tough.
We would much rather.
Yeah, it's tough. I think the chairman explained it well.
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
So as I understand it, the sample that you showed is the covenant that's applied to just the piece of property that we're talking about. and that's been filed and it's ready to be
Been filed.
signed.
It has
But you
been
also followed up with previous residents to add that language to their covenants that's strictly on their property.
Yes.
Okay. I appreciate you going to that length. I know it was my concern that it was owner occupied. You put that in the covenant for this piece of property, so I'm happy to approve this moving forward. And I really appreciate you stepping up and adding that to the other properties, because that'll keep that development owner occupied. So makes me very happy. Thank you.
We had to do a little wordsmithing on the wording because the Pomeranski's primary home is in Sioux City. And so we had to word that as at least had to be their second home.
Yeah, and
vacation.
Yeah, and owner occupied could be a long-term rental as well as per the language, but
Yes.
still, it's nice to have it in your covenant.
Gave us
so-
some teeth. It did give us some teeth.
Yeah,
So,
appreciate
thank
that.
you.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I'll move to approve COCU 24-0005.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve COCU 24-0005 with 9 conditions. I just one for comment, I would like to note for the record that, and then I did, that Mr. Koppel's opposition is in here. I've read it. I hope you folks have read it. It certainly has its relevance to the matter that we're addressing. And
Mr.
so,
Chair, this is another one that I'm glad that we found a resolution to, that we talked about at another meeting and came up with an option that's going to work for the owner.
anyone here from the audience would like to address this before we vote? Discussion from the commission. Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
You got that for the record, Jerry? Thank you. On to item number 16.
Excuse me, Megan Talmadge, Planner. Agenda item number 16 is conditional use permit COCU 24-0003. Is to allow a contractor's equipment storage yard on the subject property. The applicant is Sam Crittenden, and the landowner is Steve and Carla Simnick. This is located at the corner of Lamb Road and Reservoir Road. This will take place on a 10-acre portion of a larger property. The current zoning is agriculture and the existing land use is agriculture. There's no special flood hazard on the property. This item was also continued from the February 26, 2024 Planning Commission meeting. The applicant has attached a business plan, but it indicates a light industrial or commercial use. The utilities in the area are not sufficient for a industrial use. And it would include pretty much running a full-time business on the property. Staff cannot recommend conditions as this is an allowed use within a light industrial zoning district and would require a rezone and a comprehensive plan amendment.
Thank you, Megan. Questions for Megan right now? Chair's going to note just for the record, so again, because we do have people listening and watching, we did receive communications from Mary London, Carol Bradeen, and I believe Don, that speaks for Don too. It's as if he signed it. Maggie Clapridge. Everyone here get copies of those prior to the meeting, and you've reviewed them. Thank you for getting them to us, Megan. And these sort of things, I usually hold the applicant until anybody that's speaking in opposition to it speaks. And I just want to note that for the record too, because it does help us for efficiency of the meeting than some of the questions that come up that we would have for the applicant are certainly going to come from testimony from other folks, just so everybody knows what we're doing here. So if anyone here is here to speak on this, I do have 3 speaker request forms that I'll call out first, and we do check to make sure in case somebody doesn't have one of them. I have David Lamb. And please introduce yourself just for the record. And we spoke to you last time, Mr. Lamb, but you got to do it every time you come up here. Thank you.
You bet. My name is David Lamb. We have branched in that area since I was a small person, and we have a lot of thoughts, and so do our neighbors, about this particular application. The application came out of kind of left field, and since there's nothing else out there, everybody more or less had to learn about it by word of mouth. So that's one thing that's of interest there. And I wanted to make some comments that are partly about the global situation in this area. As for Rapid City, at this point, it's all agricultural or residential from along Reservoir Road from Highway 44 and down Lamb Road over to Old Folsom Road, and there is some commercial development on Lamb Road, or Old Folsom Road, as you get down toward Highway 79. And in addition, we worked with community leaders here in Rapid City to do around 700 acres of industrial zoning by Highway 79 in the Black Hills Industry Center. And then south of that, there's a big district set up by Pat Hall for commercial. So there's an awful lot of commercial around there. There's not any big need to do something new. But one of the things I was hoping to note was that Rapid City kind of has one wedge of open ground to do quality development left on. I was going to try and note that by just going around Rapid City to point out that while we do have some land here and there, we've got most every place you could do high-quality development gone. If you go from this property around toward the airport, then you're under an airport, and around Ellsworth, you're under another flyway area that is both limited in what you can do there, and it's not much fun for development anyway. So if you go around from there, you're also hitting Highway 90, and as you go around the north edge of town, you get into Meade County. So we don't have much to do with that, but it limits, if there is any place up there to use, it's out of Pennington County. As you go on around from there, you run over toward Sturgis Road and I-90, and that's got quarries and so on. And then you go around from there south through some pretty dense residential areas. And I think there's a personal story I've got there that points out a little bit of how things change and how much change there's been. We get down that way. I grew up in Skyline Ranch up off Highway 16 by the reptile gardens. And when I grew up there, you could look at the whole Black Hills. There was nothing out there. It was just completely beautiful, of course, but it's not that way now. When I came back to look at that and see maybe I would build a house on that property after my family passed away and the house burned, it was a sea of houses out there. You can look around all the way over the whole Black Hills there, and by the time I came back to do that, some time ago, that was just all houses. So things change pretty fast. And as you go on around from there, you go down toward Highway 79 and back to these industrial centers again. So you've got a kind of a wedge from Old Folsom Road and around to the ridge that goes down into Rapid Valley that is still available if you want to do some quality development that isn't blocked by something that's going to limit your ability to do that. And the properties adjoining that are residential and agricultural. So somebody mentioned that there was something in there they thought that was not agriculture, residential, and it all is. It's there's nothing there from those developments on Old Folsom Road all the way around to Highway 16, and it's not actually commercial right there either. So that was one note I wanted to make. The other one is just that notice of this, since there's nothing else out there except these other residential and agricultural properties, it came kind of out of left field that we would do this over there without any of the real setup to be able to handle that kind of zoning there. One of the big things is those two roads, Lamb Road and Reservoir Road. People spoke to the idea that maybe Reservoir Road should have been made a little heavier and a little wider. That was not done, but what we've had happen over the course of time is because somebody mentioned that they counted a lot of trucks out there. Well, some trucks go out there for business, a number of trucks go out there because they don't want to go past the scale. But when they do go down through there, the new road and sewer was put in there not very many years ago, and that sewer and road failed. It just went downhill into the ground and turned into waves, and the sewer had to be replaced and the road had to be replaced until just recently for $1 million, and it's starting to get wavy again just because of the soils and the sewer that's underneath. So it's not a good place to encourage heavy industrial trucking, and especially since it's not even supposed to be there. So that would be the kind of thing that would be associated with construction and so on. So those are the main things I think about, and I think that, like I say, there's just enough development out there to handle any of these completely. And I can take any questions you've got, if there'd be any interest in trying to help me show what I've got to talk about.
Okay. Questions for Mr. Lamb?
Well,
You're aware that there are, gee, I don't know how I can get by without being rotten to Brittany on this one. There's some probably properties out there in violation now already
What sort of a violation are you thinking of?
that appear to be industrial from the look of the storage and things that are on them.
Yeah, I can't think of much of anything about. The only thing that we have around there at all is Bill Schulke, as he retired from his construction business, has his ranch headquarters there, and he owns massive amounts of property, and he keeps a lot of larger equipment there, and he's currently selling off the stuff he's got except for the ranching items. So
That's a good point. In other words, he has his right to store his property that he has for sale from his closing, yes.
Yeah, and he's got massive amounts of silage there and giant balers that could bale a car and things like that. So he's a little different than most of us. But nonetheless, it's just all residential pretty much, or it's pastures. And more importantly, I think it's going to be important for other reasons not to turn that into just a site that's not really up to the code anyway for doing the kind of development that's being suggested. And I think that might be why they want to try to do that there. The gentleman would like to have a place to put his yard, and the landowner would probably like to just sell one out there, but it's not going to be good for that area. And I think that's why there's been a staff recommendation that we not start something just in the middle of nowhere up there and compromise an area there that you can see a long way, and it'll be in your viewway. So I wanted to thank you, and that's about all I had to say initially.
Okay, and then the other areas are basically agriculture. We're very flexible about storage and whatever units they have to do their business.
Yeah, I think that those must be over on Old Folsom Road along by the Black Hills Industry Center and along in there in Basin Power. But when you get to Mike Gould's property there, he's got his winery. Maybe that's not residential or something, and he's got a housing that goes around from there, not very dense. And then you just have open country as near as I know, except for some buildings on our ranch property and a couple of other ranches there. And then you go around and down Reservoir Road, and that's just pretty much all residential except for the place we just talked about. Just all small ranchettes, and Dale's got a big pasture there, and a big hayfield, but other than that, it's all strictly not industrial at this point. And it's, as I say, and most importantly, one of the few areas that is not compromised, so you can't really develop it much anymore. There's just a little wedge that comes out there, and when that's gone, there won't be much of any place to put that type of development. It's all pretty well occupied already, or compromised.
Thank you, Mr. Lamb. Any other questions for Mr. Lamb? Thank you.
Well, thank you very much.
Pamela Kammerer. Please introduce yourself just for the record.
My name is Pamela Kammerer, and I just recently learned about this from the sign up on the road and then started talking to the neighbors about it. But as David said, one of the main concerns is that allowing this, the topography up there where the road would come off is not conducive or probably even legal going to the north and coming out of that property. And heading back north would not be even legal for the size of the road. The road is, Reservoir Road is very narrow. It's been redone twice. It's already starting to warp again. It's just not a good plan. The sides of the road are just in some places very sharp and a sharp major drop off into the ditch. It's a steep road ditch. It's a narrow road. It's hard to pass a big truck on that road now. On the occurrences that come through there, there's been a guy down the road building a house and just the big trucks that bring lumber and stuff in. I mean, that road, I just don't think can sustain this type of a industry there. So, and that none of us were notified is really disheartening. And that's it.
Questions for Pamela? Thank you.
Thank you.
Just for the record, that part of South Dakota, the western, does have some of the worst soil conditions down in the valley. There are two areas around Rapid City that have extremely difficult soil conditions for. I'm kind of sticking up for the highway department in the state. It is difficult for them to work with those soils. So, and that has come up again and again during this conversation, but it is something they still are supposed to be able to design around. But it is extremely difficult out in that area and another one we have around Rapid City. The next is Jeff Barber.
Good morning. My name is Jeff Barber. I got a petition with 44 signatures for everybody within 2 to 3 miles of there opposing this, so that's what I got.
Jeff, we need to get that to Jerry and then she'll return it to you. We have to copy it for the record since it's part of your testimony.
Okay, that's what I got.
And Jeff, okay, and they are specifically in opposition to the issuance of this permit?
Yes, yep. Okay. And I'd say 99% of them were never notified out of the 44.
Sure. There is a limit to what the petitioner has to do for notifications.
Okay.
And I don't know where those folks would fall in that. However, we do have any other questions for Jeff while we've got him here?
I wondered if Jerry could read just what does the petition say?
It has a petition and it says objection to application of zoning from agricultural/residential to industrial commercial on the corner of Lamb Road and Reservoir Road. Pennington County staff reports access and roads are not adequate for industrial and commercial use. There's NN equals not notified. They have a list and showing which people were notified and not notified.
Thank you.
Okay. Other questions for Jeff? We will get that back to him. Their office, do you know where their office is at up there? Okay. They'll copy it and get it back for you. Thank you, Jeff. Anyone else that either is here to speak on this item, hasn't filled out a speaker request form, we're not going to be real picky on that.
Mr.
Yes, sir.
Chair.
Okay, you're up next anyway. You're next.
Hi, I'm Sam Crittenden. I'm the applicant. To address all the notification things, the post office sent back 17 letters. That was on them. But I'd also like to point out that the vast majority of what the county required us to notify was that development to the northeast. It was, I think, a 500-foot radius of the overall property. So if you live 2 miles away, sorry you're not notified, but that's what it is. As far as not recommending conditions, there's not much to say. We went in there, we said we wanted to build a shop and have contractor storage. They took our money. We spent thousands of our own dollars getting ready to do this. And then, last minute, the rug was pulled out from under us. It's not you guys, but they have no dog in the fight, and there needs to be some onus on being competent and giving us correct information. On a deeper level, despite the fact that they told us the wrong thing, they are following what the county told them to do, what the ordinances are. As Mr. Lamb pointed out, this is the last wedge left. So if we were going to try to stay in Pennington, which clearly we can't anymore, there's not really anywhere for us to go. There's nothing in a small business price range that caters to what we need. We're forced to go to meet at this point, and there was nothing we could have done differently. We checked and made sure what we were going to do was going to be accepted, and we were told it was, and now it's not. So we're pretty irritated by this whole process.
Okay. Questions for Sam while we've got him up here? And I'm going to comment for Sam, and we did at last meeting so folks will know. What happened on his notifications just hasn't happened with us before, but there's no precedence on how to solve that. And it is not something that Sam, rigged or it happened. And it can't be solved, and it can't be going back. The publications still go through. And so Sam shouldn't be, what would I say, punished or penalized because of that. The folks, it's an unfortunate thing. I'm sure in the future we're going to look at, if it happens again, we're going to have something to fall back on. But in my knowledge, I've been around here for 20 years. I've never seen that happen, and it can happen. I'm sure the post office had something happen about it. But
I have a question for Sam. The photo you submitted of the contractor's yard, do you have an address for that?
Can I see which one you're talking about?
Because I drove out there yesterday and I didn't.
Sure. I can pull that address up on my phone if you give me a minute, but that's Mr. Schulte's land that Mr. Lamb was referring to.
Has he always run a shop out of there?
I think for a number of years, but I can't tell you any details.
Makes me wonder if he's been paying the ag levy on his land, if he's been a contractor. But
right.
That's a whole different thing.
there are some that are both.
Well,
we know. That's not our side of it, Karen.
I know.
Thank you.
I sat in on a lot of equalization hearings, though.
You getting it, Megan?
Yeah, I'm not sure what address it is, but
It's on the top left, yep, that yard.
this actually has a conditional use permit on it, but that is for a processing plant, I believe.
Is that zoned ag?
Yes,
Yes.
and looks like it is tax tag.
All right, well, I got you both here, and Megan too. I only have one question, and it's really for Megan. In your analysis, it says there is no guarantee of future approval of an approach with a light industrial or commercial use. That's also a pretty big item, isn't it? That's basically our highway department saying they're not sure they want to approve that. And I can't say I've seen that a lot from them. This is kind of unusual that they're sitting back and saying. So even if we approve this, what I'm saying is that the highway department may not approve his approach. Is that correct?
That is in reference to an approach that has already had an initial inspection. And that inspection was for specifically a residential use.
Right.
So they would need to take access off of that Lamb Road section line. They would need to improve it and have a turnaround to industrial standards.
But being the applicant, they don't want to do that until they come up with their new designs they want to use on that road. Is that correct? That was involved too, as I understood it. There's some new work planned for that area, so they don't want to really look at his design for the approach meeting that until after they have that work done. That's what I gathered.
There's a safety project on Reservoir Road that has, they're not, I don't believe that they're expanding the road width. The road width will still be 24 feet, but they're shaving down the hill on this north side here so that it's a little bit less.
Drainage?
Well, drainage and line of sight.
Okay.
Because when you're going over that hill and then you're going down, you tend to go a little bit fast.
All right. Cutting it down. Okay. That was my only question. I wanted to point out that that was still a factor in this request too. The highway department, we don't often see that where they're leaving the door open, I guess is a nice way to put it. Any other questions for Sam while we have him up here? Thank you.
Yep.
Megan, any other questions for Megan while she's here? Okay. Floor is open for a motion, discussion, whatever you'd like to do. Chair's being patient.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that for staff recommendations for denial of conditional use permit, COCU 24-0003.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Been moved and seconded. Staff to deny, it's actually staff recommends denial of conditional use permit CU 24-0003. Floor is open for discussion. From the audience.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I would, I empathize with the applicant. I don't think a conditional use permit is proper for this property, which is why I seconded the item. An unfortunate chain of events, and I was hoping that we could find a resolution like we have on some of the other properties. Don't think it's going to happen on this one. So,
Thank you. I'm glad you did because it opens it for discussion. I think some of the things we don't consider, we don't deal with light industrial and industrial very often. And it's a horse of another color if you really start looking at it. It's the basis of zoning, so people can't put in salvage yards alongside people's $1-million houses. It's a very rigid, demanding category of zoning. And usually well versed through the department. In other words, if this was a approved type of use, it would have a long list of conditions and qualifications that they've got to meet to do it. So that's something to be considered too. We're at the far extreme of our zoning capabilities. And because of that, when you're dealing with agriculture and residential, there's a long distance between those two zoning wise. So that's certainly involved here. And then the fact that it's new to the area, it hasn't been there yet. Any other comments commissioners would like to make? Some of the pictures, I assume, were ag people. We're pretty flexible about allowing our ag people their storage. I believe it was Mr. Lamb noted that one of the gentlemen was actually closing out a construction company. we've never been very difficult to deal with giving people time to dispose of things and park those units on property and things, and it certainly does make more of an industrial look. But I think you've got to allow property owners those discretion so that they have time to do those things. And some construction company, you could have equipment 2, 3 years. Wouldn't even be a short time to get a fair price, depending on markets. So I understand that. Any other discussions from the audience? Yes, you certainly may. You do need to introduce yourself for the record.
Carla Buxton.
Right at the mic.
Carla Buxton.
Thank you.
One of my things is they talked about the lay of the land, and to make it proper for the trucks to go in, that they would have to cut out some of the hill there on the road. One of my questions is, whose cost would that be? Would that be at the taxpayers, or would it be at the owners of the property if you're gonna chip away part of the hill?
Megan dealt with the highway department. She can give you a better idea on that.
So that's actually an ongoing project that they're projecting to start in 2026, and that's a federally funded project.
And another thing is, I think is part of everybody's concern is, I believe that's like 240 acres. And if we start off with conditional use for a 10-acre plot, what stops 10 more acres, 10 more acres, 10 more acres until you talk about this one thing here, number 2, the substantially impair or diminish use, value, or enjoyment of other property in the neighborhood. We live in the development to the west there off of Lamb Road, the Darlington Estates, to which part of the reason we bought it was for the land and the way that things look. And to sit off of your backyard and to see potentially a 240-acre industrial park with heavy equipment is a downfall as well, I think, for property values in the area.
So to be correct, you're concerned about the precedence this particular one sets versus the other remaining property that could be divided.
I don't like the idea of it. I mean, I do feel bad, but yeah, part of the reason that you choose a home or you decide to live somewhere is the way it is zoned and the way, even where we're at, we're in large acreage lots. So this doesn't happen, and we do have that big thing coming in on Old Folsom off of 79, which all down to 79, there's a lot of space for businesses and things like that. But I was just curious as to, who was going to take care of the price of the fix of the road if that were to happen. And just the potential for the whole thing.
Thank you. Questions? Thank you. Anyone else from the audience? From the commission?
Just one thing, Mr. Chair. Megan, can you give me just the short Reader's Digest version of how the applicant started doing things before we actually had all of the things done? And I'm a little gray on that.
So the process that we conducted to take in the conditional use permit?
Just how we got to this point, how without having everything approved, we had construction starting, and I'm not sure exactly what all's been done out there, but just a little curious as to how everything has gone to this point.
So when the applicant originally came in and was looking at this property, I did speak to him about what this would fall under, but that was just a shop for storage. When he came back in with the application, he had talked to a couple other planners with that same idea of strictly storage. And then the idea of an office was introduced, an idea of that they would be having equipment outside of the proposed structure. I can't speak to the work that's been done on the land, as that's private. If they didn't go over 10,000 square feet of dirt work, they don't need a stormwater permit for that. But it was staff's understanding that this would strictly be for storage.
Additional questions? You okay, Kevin? Anyone else? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. We're on 17, will not be necessary, and takes a separate motion to, that was executive session. So we're on to number 18.
Item number 18 is the county board report. The Board of Commissioners concurred with the Planning Commission's recommendations from the February 26th, 2024 Planning Commission meeting.
We got a lot of those lately. What's going on here? They laying down on us? We must not have any new ordinances we've pushed through on them. Next time, okay. Very good. Items from the public.
Public's leaving.
Yeah.
They haven't all got out the door, but it doesn't look like they want to come up. Items from the staff.
We just have the building permit report, and we're on pace for what we were in 2023 as far as the overall number of permits. We are up in February for the number of single-family residences.
Suppose the weather made those single families, they just said, let's go, huh?
There's more, and there's also more platted lots in some of the
'Cause of
3-mile area.
Murphy's and whatnot.
Because of the Murphy Ranch, yes.
I saw a number of them were from that. Any questions on the building report?
I have a question. Is Apple Valley up and running yet or not?
No, they just started construction along Anderson Road to start putting in the water and sewer lines and widening the roads.
But again, they are working earlier in the season than usually that utility work gets started.
Yes,
So we're gonna see more.
they are a little
Permit.
behind on that project. They should have started probably last spring, summer, but they did start it probably a couple weeks ago.
I think we've seen that all over the hills with this weather we've been having this winter. All righty, thank you, Brittany.
I think it could still get washed out here before too long.
Yeah.
Items from the membership, and I understand we have one. Go ahead, Mike.
Vacation home rental can of worms here. This started off, we had a committee of well-versed people that came back after numerous hearings to us about what they thought. Then we had numerous public hearings. And then it went to the commissioners and down the tube it goes. And all of a sudden now we have a whole new can of worms. And this is going to be something we're going to do next time, I understand. I would think we would, excuse me. I would think we would want to go over this in depth long before we try to include this in a regular meeting. I mean, there's tons of things in here that I think people would have concerns about. And I don't know if a special meeting, something like this, I know what you're saying, Karen, I do know. But what I'm saying is a meeting enough to discuss the big changes in this thing? I don't know.
We can always continue it, so.
You'd what?
We can always continue it.
Well,
I
yes,
mean,
we
if we're
can.
not happy.
I guess it certainly makes a change in direction. We're stepping out a different direction. I'm not sure what the reaction of the public's gonna be once we publish it. Any idea? Have you had calls or anything on it yet?
Just a few emails, but it's been posted for quite some time
That's what
on
I
our
was
website. And I believe Jerry ran it for 3 weeks in the newspaper instead of 2. Didn't you?
No, we only have to advertise it once for 10 days.
But it's been on our webpage.
So will
and-
it go again then, Jerry? Before the meeting? Just on our agenda, in other words?
Yep.
Okay.
And it's been on the front page of our Pennington County page. Holly put it on the front of the page so I mean, it's been out there for some time.
The biggest view, and I'm going to support Michael a little on that, the biggest view, and I'm sure that's the one he's coming from, is those that oppose vacation home rentals as a blanket type of thing. So that's the biggest confusion I could see, potential. And if they don't come, they don't come. Whether they're finally all giving up and throwing their hands in the air at us, who knows? But Mike said he'd like to bring this up to the membership, under the membership thing. Um, I'm willing to do just a little straw vote, whether you think we ought to do a separate special meeting for it or not. Kevin?
You're right, it's a can of worms.
I know you're.
I haven't looked at it since it came out, but to me, it reminded me a lot of what the legislation was going to go through at Pier. It was more of a, what do I want to say? More of a, rather than control over it, it was just more of a operating permit or something like that.
Yeah. Revised look.
Yeah. So it's looking at.
So you would oppose a special meeting?
Yeah, I think we can talk about it here.
And we're going to use you just because you're a member today and we don't have 7. You think we need a special meeting?
I think.
We won't hold you for the other board of commissioners.
I think you guys did some great work on this. I mean, you spent a lot of time on it, and unfortunately, when you pass it on, then you give it to another group of people to work on, and a whole new stuff comes out. Since I've been on this commission, I'm going on the 8th year, I mean, this has been something that's been plenty of public meetings on it, and I have to agree with Mike that I think some people are getting tired and not showing up, and it's how it got from point A to point B on this last one. Yeah. Time changes the circumstances and how people think, I think, so. I hate to give too much information because when I had to abstain from this since I do have a vacation rental, so
I was going to point that out right now. Lloyd does operate one. Mike, you favor Kevin? You want to speak on it?
If the group wants to go along with it, I would definitely do it. It's up
All
to
right. Kevin?
I feel like we should gauge it at our next meeting and see what happens. I mean, if we need to call a special meeting after
So let's not do anything, let's not plan it in.
Yeah, I mean, let's feel the temperature of the crowd and see who shows up and what that is. I mean, before we schedule a special meeting, we really need to understand what the public's desire is. It's been well advertised. It'll be in the minutes. If they want to come talk about it and we need to revisit in more depth, let's just see what it's like at the next meeting.
And Kieran, I know where you're at on it.
I think the commissioners made it clear that they don't think we have the budget to enforce it, so why put it in an ordinance if we can't enforce it? So I don't want a special meeting.
And I'm going to say, I don't think we should do it at this point. I think what happened, and some of it was the loudest voices. Those fees rang. The loudest voices came from operators that didn't like the fees, and not from the folks that sit there that are concerned about their operations alongside of them. So, no, at this point, I think I'm going to stay with the rest all but Mike. Mike, that's a good point. Don't get me wrong, but I'm going to stay with that. Let's wade into it, and we'll see where we go from there. We may be surprised who shows up. We may. I'm just concerned. I haven't had any phone calls this time on this, and I had a lot of input during that committee time. And I'm sure, 1, because I sat on it, and number 2, because of here. But I had a lot of input. I haven't had a thing about the current change or your discussions at a workshop, that sort of thing.
Yeah, and quite frankly, just from my opinion, my personal opinion, I think the original ordinance, I mean, there were some changes that probably could have been done, but when it got reduced back down quite a bit, that's the perception that was coming towards the commission. As an owner, I was okay with everything.
Straw vote goes against a special meeting, but I am going to point out one thing that came up in this, and it comes up in what we looked at today. One of these days, our commissioners are gonna have to get brave and talk about the planning department and enforcement and help on enforcement on things. Pictures don't lie when you're looking right at things. And drive-bys don't lie, and a lot of us do try to drive by and look at these things even though we've got short time. The enforcement and looking the other way. We spoke of one, and we're not gonna name who, we spoke of one before the meetings, absolutely abusive, who just had something go through in a way of, decides they're not gonna cooperate with efforts. And we have that, and our planning department right now, budget-wise, personnel-wise, everything is very limited. I think that's one of the things that's going to come up in the future, probably after I'm gone, and that's enforcement, because it's difficult to weigh whether we're doing a good job, should be doing more, or not enough. I think some of our citizens would go up in arms if we talked about doing more, and maybe they should, I don't know. I don't want to make that decision alone, but we should, if we're going to make an ordinance, it should be enforced.
Yep.
So that's the one that's going to come up in the future.
And you know this, Charlie, normally, even with the city or whoever it is, it's normally complaint-based, how it starts out. I mean, that's.
Well, they see enforcement as fees. That's where the fees went. And the committee, if you'll remember right, and we dealt with the committee members here, they had no intention of the planning department getting a bigger budget over it. They had intention of the fees, even if it was only to fund a part-time person. They spoke about that, right? They gave us testimony in that regard. And we listened to that, and it made sense, that part of it. But it also did include additional fees that were going to pay that part-time person, that sort of thing. So it's done. We're not going to have a special meeting. Don't worry. I won't come to you in the next few weeks and ask you for that. That's the last item. Adjournments are following. Item 22, I believe.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to adjourn. All in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We're going to adjourn. Thank you. Those type of things are tough to talk about. You